The 10 keyless keyboard has been an iconic layout and has been quite synonymous with modern mechanical keyboards, and in my opinion it is a timeless one. So today we're going to check out one of the long-standing TKL boards in the market, the VA87M from Varmilo. A big thanks to mwave.com.au for providing this keyboard for review and for their continued support, and I'll put the links in the description. As said, this is a 10 keyless keyboard, and this one has a completely standard ANSI layout, although Varmilo do make ISO versions with language specific keycaps, which is awesome. And a 10 keyless keyboard of course is just missing the numpad, so if a numpad is important to you, then it may not be for you, but you can always get a separate one. But by giving up the numpad, you gain a lot of lateral space, and while it may not look like that much, it's very noticeable with everyday use and allows us to bring our mouse closer to the center for a more ergonomic experience. This keyboard comes in so many different colors with its outer case and keycaps, but the one I have here is perhaps the most stealthy configuration. The case is made from plastic, but it has an almost metallic appearance with a bit of sparkle, almost looking like a dark metallic grey, and there's a very slight texture to the surface. It's quite an interesting design that I haven't come across in other reviews. It's like a floating key design, meaning that the mounting plate is the top surface with the key switches exposed from the sides, but it isn't as much as a traditional floating key keyboard. Here we have the plastic top shell acting as a cover, but it doesn't rise to enclose the key switches like most other boards. So it only comes up about 1.9mm above the plate surface. And this allows for a very minimal bezel around the keyboard. The sides only go 3mm past the keycaps, while the top and bottom have about 5mm. The keycaps match the enclosure, being black on dark grey, and I love this look. It's very subdued and the legends are perfectly legible to me in normal lighting conditions, but with the lights off it does get a bit hard to see with just the monitor acting as light. The legends themselves have a nice simple typeface to them and are also slightly italic, and they're quite sharp as they are dye sublimated, so they'll be very durable over time. Looking at the side profile, and it does have a slight inclination to it, and because of that near floating key design, the case itself is quite slim. We can also see the pretty much cherry profile keycaps that Varmilo use on all their keyboards. It's a very popular profile and is very comfortable to use in my opinion. On the bottom we have some flat rubber feet for non-slip and two flip-up feet that are also nicely rubber tipped, and we have our mini USB port in the center with cable routing channels. Taking off the keycaps, and these are a nice 1.4mm thick and are made from PBT plastic, which should be quite shine resistant over time. And underneath the keycaps, this one in particular comes with Cherry MX Speed silver key switches, but it does come in all the other varieties of course. These switches are intended for and marketed towards gamers and are a linear key switch, meaning that they have no tactile bump and are smooth all the way down. These have a total travel distance of 3.4mm rather than the normal 4mm, and have an actuation distance of 1.2mm rather than the normal 2mm. And the actuation force is 45 grams. So they feel very similar to Cherry MX Reds, but just bottom out earlier, so you have to get used to that. So the logic behind this is simple. First of all, a linear key switch has no obstructions and allows for easier and faster repetitive actions. The shorter distances will then contribute more to that, and the light actuation force of 45 grams will again make the actions quicker and easier in theory. All of these factors are very minimal, but altogether it does create a switch that in theory is better for gaming. Whether it makes a difference to you, I'm not so sure. I can game with any switch no problem, but I'm not a pro or anything, but objectively it is a key switch that requires a lesser amount of effort to press and will be ever so slightly by a tiny amount quicker to actuate and reset. In my personal experience and opinion, I do like gaming with these. It is easier on my fingers and I do feel like I am slightly faster. It may be a placebo effect, but I definitely feel less sluggish in comparison to, say, a Cherry MX Blue board. But I am loving how it feels on this keyboard. These Varmilo keyboards have been really impressive in how they feel. They're very full in how they feel, where another keyboard can feel more hollow and not as dense. And that also goes for how it sounds as well, just sounding more solid and deeper in comparison to others, and we'll see why later. The stabilizers on here are amazing and contribute to that feeling. These are genuine cherry stabs and are generously lubed and perhaps over lubed, but they make for amazingly smooth and soft feeling stabilizers that are often not the case with majority of off-the-shelf mechanical keyboards. Other little things, we have some media control keys on the F7 to F12 keys, which is accessible via the FN key. We can also lock the Windows key by pressing FN with Windows. And that's pretty much it. There's no customizability or programmability or any dip switches. What you see is what you get. Taking the keyboard apart is pretty easy by unscrewing a couple of Phillips head screws and then releasing the tabs. Alright, so here's the plastic top shell, and it is the thinnest and most flimsiest piece I've come across, but that's only because of its low profile design, and when paired with a metal plate, it doesn't really matter. The bottom shell is also pretty slim, but it does have some ribbing on the bottom surface for reinforcement, although the most important part is this piece of foam here. This piece of foam is what makes the keyboard feel so good to type on, and also makes it sound better. It's using a sturdy and standard 1.5mm thick steel mounting plate, which is bent at the front and back. The PCB is very clean, and this specific keyboard did not come with LEDs. However, as seen, most of them are available with LEDs, but since they are the same PCB, you can easily solder in your own lighting as I did with this, but is of course not RGB compatible. And as we can see, these are south-facing LEDs, meaning that the LEDs are on the bottom rather than the top, and this ensures that the keycaps do not hit the LEDs. However, the combination of south-facing LEDs and the fact that the key switches are exposed, this means that at an angle the LEDs are visible. This isn't really an issue with normal use, as when you're over the top of it, you can't really see them, but when you step away from it, the LEDs are blaringly there, and on full brightness they are quite blinding. So I like to keep mine on the lowest setting. Overall, this is a wonderful choice for a 10 keyless keyboard. All of these recent keyboards that I've checked out from Varmilo have all genuinely felt so nice to type on. There's been a noticeable difference between the Varmilo keyboards and many of the other mainstream brands, and I think this is mainly attributed to the solid cherry profile keycaps, the very smooth and generously lubed stabilizers, and of course the foam on the underside of the PCB. I feel that these implementations together create such a pleasant and satisfying typing experience. This may seem overwhelmingly positive, but many other keyboards feel hollow in comparison. There's nothing really bad to say about it. I guess the top shell knot surrounding the key switches isn't for everyone, and you perhaps would like a high profile design instead, but that's just an aesthetic thing. And there's no customizability or programmability or any software, but at the same time does keep things simple as well. But all in all, I found it very enjoyable to use. I feel that this is a benchmark in retail 10 keyless keyboards that are widely available for a reasonable price, with another option being the Leopold TKL boards. There's also Philco, but they're a bit more expensive. Thanks again to mwave.com.au for providing this keyboard for review, and I'll put the links in the description if you want to check it out. And also a big thanks to Varmilo for being a sponsor of the last Sydney Mechanical Keyboard meetup.